Hello and welcome back to the channel. It's great to see you here again. Today we are looking at two microphones, the Rode NTG5 and the Rode VideoMic NTG. We're going to see which of these is better in terms of sound quality and practicality, and thereby see which I think is the better microphone for the Canon R5C, and by extension all the other fantastic mirrorless video cameras out there, including the one that you use. Let's tuck in. I like Rode microphones for, I think, three reasons. First of all, they are very reasonably priced. And that is an important thing if you're running your own business and you're paying for it out of your own profits. So yes, they are very good value for money. Secondly, they are very rugged. They really don't mess around when it comes to the quality. They last ages. Finally, the sound quality is excellent. They managed to balance them all quite well. Plus, they're Australian, which is fun.
The most venomous snake in the world. This is one wild unit. This is the snake you don't want to get tagged by.
There are some brilliant microphone testers on YouTube, and I really would recommend you check out Curtis Judd's channel for reviews and tests of these two microphones, as well as any other that you might be considering. His tests are extremely detailed, so go check out his channel. I'll link it over here. I'm going to look at the sound quality for the kind of uses that I do, which is talking heads and video production, and also the practical use of these microphones. Which one's more practical? Which one's easier to work with? As well as which one sounds better. So to better explore which of these two mics is the better choice for the R5C or other mirrorless video cameras, let's talk about what makes a good video microphone. First of all, very obviously, it's got to have good sound quality. Now, if you're going to spend money on an external microphone, which everybody should if you want to make better quality videos, it's got to sound good. It's got to sound better than the internal microphones, and well, it's got to sound as good as your budget will extend to. Secondly, and the reason why we like to use shotgun microphones, is subject isolation. Shotgun microphones tend to be longer barreled, and they have these either slits or circles cut into the metal casing of the microphone. This helps muffle sounds from the side or off axis and makes sure that the focus of the microphone is from directly in front of them. That means that if you're filming your subject and you're pointing the microphone towards them, they should be the loudest, and anything that happens off axis should be diminished or muffled. Basically lower in volume than what's directly in front of the microphone. This gives good subject isolation, which is ideal for talking heads or for capturing location sound and getting Foley. Next up, we've got to take into account the fact that a lot of us are small businesses or freelancers, and therefore it's got to be reasonably priced. We've got to take into account how practical the mic is to use, especially with the system that we have. So if it's something that needs a lot of workarounds, it's not an ideal solution. So it's got to be practical and quick and simple to use with our camera system. Finally, it's got to be rugged. We want a professional solution, something that isn't going to fall apart with a few uses or a few knocks here and there. You can't be delicate with your stuff. It's going to get thrown about, it's going to get thrown into your case. It needs to be as rugged as possible, and it needs to stand up to adverse conditions if that's where you film. So let's start off with sound quality. This is going to be the main deciding factor for a lot of people watching this video. I'm going to do 3 tests to challenge the microphones in different ways. I'm going to try my best to make it as fair as possible between the two mics. So let's kick it off with the first test. And for this, we're going to go to a sound studio to make sure that we get a pristine environment so that you can get an idea about how these mics sound without any extraneous noises. So we're here inside the studio, and so this is going to be the nicest environment for these mics. We have the Rode NTG5 above me over here, and the Rode VideoMic NTG here on the left. My left. So this kind of situation is ideal for interviews. We've got no external sounds coming through. We're on mic stands, and the microphones are just above me, and pretty much as close as you can get to the noise source, which is my mouth, as you can without it coming in shot. So this is a realistic, well, this is an ideal interview setup. We're on mic stands, and the microphones are just above me, and pretty much as close as you can get to the noise source, which is my mouth, as you can without it coming in shot. So this is a realistic, well, this is an ideal interview setup. So listening to these two mics side by side, the impression I'm getting is that the Rode NTG5 has a lot more dynamic range to it. There's more bass, and it's got a much smoother sound throughout. There's more clarity. It seems to handle the sibilance, which is the S's, so that the strength and the harshness of the S's, it seems to handle that much better than the VideoMic NTG, which in general sounds a bit harsher. It also sounds much flatter. Now, this might be something that you prefer, to have a flat sound that you can tweak. It seems to be a bit more muted and subdued, which I don't like. I like a good sound straight out of the microphone. Saves me time in the edit suite. So the Rode NTG5 has a much more, well, a more broadcast ready sound to it, which I like. So I think the winner in this scenario is definitely the Rode NTG5, and I don't think it's close. I think it's way better. This is the next test. In this test, we have some incidental sound coming from over there, and that is some music being played next door. It's still part of the studio, but this should give you a better idea about how these mics isolate my voice and reject off-axis sounds. So, you be the judge. Which one of these is sounding a bit better at voice isolation? In this test, we have some incidental sound coming from over there, and that is some music being played next door. It's still part of the studio, but this should give you a better idea about how these mics isolate my voice and reject off-axis sounds. So, you be the judge. Which one of these is sounding a bit better at voice isolation? This one was really tough to call. So, with the incidental sound, I found that the VideoMic NTG did seem to, and you can let me know in the comments if you agree with this, the VideoMic NTG seemed to reject the off-axis sound a little bit better than the Rode NTG5. I just find it easier to understand what I'm saying with the VideoMic NTG than I am with the Rode NTG5. By the way, listening to my voice over and over again, pure hell. So this next bunch of tests are going to be with both microphones mounted on top of the camera. So it should give you a good idea about how these mics both sound quality-wise without there being any differences in volume or gain. So this next bunch of tests are going to be with both microphones mounted on top of the camera. So it should give you a good idea about how these mics both sound quality-wise without there being any differences in volume or gain. Okay, something's gone wrong here. Did you notice the amount of static or white noise, the noise floor on the VideoMic NTG? The only thing that changed between the first bunch of tests and this one was that I actually removed the extension cable from the microphone. So let me demonstrate. In the first bunch of tests, I had the Rode extension lead, which again is 3.5 millimeters, which plugged into the XLR adapter, which then the other end plugged into here. So that meant that I could extend it from the camera to sitting above me like that. All that changed for the second test was that I took that extension cable away, plugged directly into that adapter, and then plugged that into the Tascam. Somehow this introduced a hell of a lot of noise. So to make it more fair, we're gonna redo that test right here, right now, and see which one sounds better.
A few moments later.
Okay, so to try and mitigate the issue, I have put on top of the camera the... I should put the other one on as well.
2,000 years later.
Okay, so now both microphones are back on top of the Tascam. They are plugged in directly to the Tascam, so there's no extra bits and pieces that might be causing any issues. The XLR cables themselves, they're both Nutric Van Dam, so identical cables. Pretty much the only difference is one of them has a 3.5mm jack on the other end, so essentially it's not balanced. And that's just one of the downsides of the VideoMic NTG. So I've had a quick listen, and I know that that static and that hiss is no longer a factor. So hopefully this will give you a better idea about how these two microphones sound when they're on top of the camera in a more run and gun style setup. So people doing documentaries or doing run and gun style shoot, this is going to be a more practical way to set up your microphones. So I'll give you an idea about how it sounds when it's not close mic'd, but actually on top of the camera. And we're about maybe 3-4 feet, just over a meter away from me. So I've done my best to match up where the capsules are rather than the front of the mic. So it might look like one's a bit further forward than the other. The capsules should be around about the same distance from my voice, from my mouth. My voice is traveling. So I've done my best to match up where the capsules are rather than the front of the mic. So it might look like one's a bit further forward than the other. The capsules should be around about the same distance from my voice, from my mouth. My voice is traveling. Again, the Rode NTG5 tends to have a little bit more dynamic range and a bit of a richer sound, a bit of a fuller sound. The VideoMic NTG, flatter sound, not as appealing to my ears, but you decide. Tell me, which one do you think came out best in that test? One thing we do notice, especially from the silence test, is that the NTG5 has very little self noise. It is absolutely quiet. It's a very sensitive mic as well, so you don't really need to have that much gain added in order to get good sound. So that means that the noise floor is nowhere to be seen. It is a very quiet mic. You don't need to worry about the sound of, or the self noise being an issue. The VideoMic, on the other hand, definitely does have some self-noise. Finally, we're going to do a much harder test. Let's give it a go.
So this is a stress test to really see how well these cameras handle off-axis noise and how well they manage to reject it. We are right next to an extremely busy road. It is loud just standing here. There is a massive truck coming, so this is really going to give you an idea about how well they can handle noise coming from somewhere else. So this is a stress test to really see how well these cameras handle off-axis noise and how well they manage to reject it. We are right next to an extremely busy road. It is loud just standing here. There is a massive truck coming, so this is really going to give you an idea about how well they can handle noise coming from somewhere else. And now we're going to try the microphone with the voice isolation in software to see how well that works. And now we're going to try the microphone with the voice isolation in software to see how well that works.
Okay, that was quite painful to listen to. The VideoMic NTG sounded so harsh. It is a much harsher sounding microphone. The highs come across much stronger. The sibilance, again, it's a very harsh microphone. So all of the harsh noises from the traffic came through really strong. The NTG5, however, again, with its fuller sound, smoother sound, and less harsh high end, it feels a lot nicer. It's just, you can understand a lot more of what I'm saying. That might have something to do with the longer barrel as well, as in more off-axis rejection. It's not really what we observed in the first test, but again, this is going to be very subjective. You might like the sound of the VideoMic NTG better than the NTG5. I think the NTG5 takes it on audio quality all around. It seems better at rejecting noise when it really matters, when you got a lot of traffic noise, which is a nightmare to film anywhere near. So let me know what you think in the comments. Which one wins on sound quality? I'm thinking it's this one, and that really should be the case because this microphone is about twice the price of the VideoMic NTG, and that is going to be a huge factor when you're deciding which is the best mic for you. Now, there's quite a flat sound and a good rich sound compared to a lot of cheaper microphones out there with VideoMic NTG, so you will be able to EQ this microphone and still make it sound fantastic. Well, the first time I ever used it, we were doing a training session with a client and they tried it out for their talking heads. We put it on top of the camera. I was blown away by the sound quality. I thought it was fantastic. It's not a bad microphone, but when you compare it next to this one, it does fall short. But how often are you going to be listening to these two side by side? So if you like the sound quality that comes out of this anyway, and it's within budget, this is still a fantastic microphone. For the final comparison, we're going to take a look at the practicality of these two microphones. Keep in mind the difference in sound quality and the difference in price, because if you are shooting on a mirrorless style camera, like the R5C, if we take out the Tascam adapter, this is going to be very difficult to use because you need phantom power. If you don't have a camera that can do phantom power, then you're going to have to look at an adapter that does provide an XLR connection and phantom power, which of course adds extra cost and extra drain on your battery, which for R5C owners, yeah, that's something we can do without. However, the VideoMic NTG has an internal battery. It's got a 3.5mm jack that goes straight into your camera if it has a microphone input, and then you can control the gain with the actual microphone itself, and it has other features inbuilt. But one of the best features of this microphone is that it has, if your camera can do stereo sound, you can have a safety track. And that's huge because often when you're working with people who aren't used to speaking to camera, they might suddenly talk really loud and the volume peaks and you might lose some data and it will sound bad. But when you have a safety track, it means that it is recording one at a certain level and another one at a lower level. And that means even if they suddenly talk really loud, that lower level won't peak and you can switch to that track to make sure you have the best audio quality all the way through. This is something you can't do with this microphone unless you have that capability on your module or on your camera. Now, if you have a camera that has XLR inputs or mini XLR inputs like the C70, then yes, this is a fantastic microphone. If you're going to spend that amount on a camera, you might as well spend a decent amount on your microphone. And that is the reason why I got this one in the first place. This was my C70 microphone. It's super light. I'll put which one's heavy and which one's lighter because I can't tell the difference between the two just holding them. So let's talk about what these microphones come with in the box. The VideoMic NTG comes with a Rycote shot mount that you can adjust how far forward the microphone is to get it out of your shot or to get it out of the eyepiece, and then that just slots on top of your camera and you can move it around. There won't be any handling noise. There will be handling noise if you try and change the volume during a take. If you're filming a talking head and you try and adjust the volume on here, you will get a rumble. That's a bit annoying and it's something to bear in mind, and it won't be an issue if you're using a microphone such as the NTG5. You'll be able to adjust the volume on your camera or on your module and it won't budge the mic and therefore you won't get a rumbling sound. So if you're going to need to change volume mid-shoot, use the camera itself and not that dial. The VideoMic NTG also comes with a simple wind filter. As soon as you go outside and any wind, it's not going to cut it. And so you're going to have to spend a little bit extra on a dead cat. It is absolutely essential if you're going to be doing any filming outside or where there might be any breeze. Oh, it also comes with a cable so you can plug that into your computer and update the firmware and use it as a microphone for video calls, for example. It's quite a versatile microphone. So if you need a microphone that does more than one thing than just filming on your camera, this is very useful, but I'm only looking at using this as a video mic. Its primary purpose, really. So, what comes with the Rode NTG5? It also comes with a pop shield. It also comes with a dead cat. Fantastic that that is included in the price. And it also comes with a pistol grip shock mount, which I'm actually using on the microphone up here. Pistol grip, it also comes with a very high quality clip, should you need to attach it to a microphone stand without using the pistol grip. And it has a zip-up pouch as well for safe storage. You get quite a lot in the box with the NTG5. It's actually a really, really good deal, but it's still a lot more expensive than the VideoMic NTG. One of the practical things that I thought was really good about the VideoMic, if you get a Rode Wireless Go or similar transmitter, this now becomes a wireless boom mic. So you could put this on a boom pole or you could put it on a microphone stand and then you could stream it wirelessly to your camera. That is brilliant because cable-free life is a good life. However, there are XLR options for condenser mics like the NTG5. The difference really is the cost. This setup is much cheaper than a condenser mic with a wireless transmitter. One final thing I'm going to mention, and that is durability. I find Rode mics extremely durable and they come with a 10-year warranty. They also handle humidity really well, so in less than ideal conditions, these microphones are going to keep performing at a very high standard. I am not so sure about the VideoMic NTG because it has a few points of potential ingress for water and internal electronics that might not agree with humid conditions or wet conditions. This is going to be less rugged than the NTG5. It's a more professional, more rugged, more durable microphone option than the VideoMic NTG. So let's do a quick summary and tally to see which one is probably the better microphone. First, looking at the audio quality, we saw that the NTG5 definitely had a richer, fuller, smoother sound, more broadcast ready. It's going to save you time in the edit because you don't need to tweak with the EQ. It just sounds great straight out of camera. There's very little self noise, which also means, again, you don't need to do any tweaks to it. It's just going to sound good straight away. Secondly, we looked at the cost, and as soon as you start to factor that in, the VideoMic NTG becomes a much more appealing option because it is about half the price of the NTG5. And when you factor in the accessories that you might need to get to make the NTG5 work with your system, this is cheap, quick, easy to use, and for the price, the sound quality is excellent. And it is kind of holding its own against a mic that's twice the price. That's quite impressive. So when you factor in the cost, the VideoMic NTG is a pretty good deal. And cost is something we shouldn't turn our noses up at discussing. Yes, we want to spend money on getting the best equipment, but often you have to make compromises in certain areas in order to get better equipment elsewhere. If you spend a lot of money on your computer system, you might not have as much left over for your microphone. With something that's, a reasonable price like the VideoMic NTG, that means you can put more money into your computing power and still get fantastic sound quality, so that's pretty cool. It's not to say the NTG5 isn't good value for money, you get a lot with this microphone. Thirdly, we looked at the practicality of each, and this is it's a tighter race now, because if you have a camera system that works very well with a just plain XLR microphone, yeah, that's pretty practical. It comes with a lot of different accessories that make it really, really usable. But if you have a mirrorless camera that doesn't have XLR capability, the VideoMic NTG is way more practical, and this is where the difference is really going to come about. Which of these microphones works best with your system, and which one are you going to have to spend a lot more money getting to work with your system if you need to buy an XLR adapter? Which is more practical for your current setup? Do you need a 3.5mm input because that's what your camera takes? Or do you have an XLR input as well? And keep in mind that this one will be able to adapt to either XLR or 3.5mm, and this one requires phantom power. Now the Canon R5C has a 3.5mm input, and I don't think it provides phantom power like some other cameras do straight out of camera. For that, you would need the Tascam XLR module, and that is, an extra expense on top of it. It also makes it a bit heavier, and it makes it a bit less inconspicuous. This microphone is a really good addition to the R5C. It's going to be up to you whether this one is more practical for your uses or this one's more practical for your uses, but hopefully I've given you enough information about what the pros and cons of each are to help you decide. Finally, we talked about durability, and again, I think the NTG5 comes out on top when it comes to durability. It is considered a more professional microphone, so yeah. If you're going to be battering your equipment or out in less than ideal conditions, go for the NTG5. So a few R5C users out there who are wondering which of these is the better microphone for your system. And if you've got the budget for the Tascam, you probably have the budget for this as well. So yes, it's a more expensive system overall, but if you're spending that amount of money on a camera and an XLR module, absolutely go for the NTG5. Better sound quality, more rugged, more durable. This is the one to go for. But just because you don't have the budget for the Tascam XLR module does not mean that you can't have great sound, because this plugs directly into the R5C, and I've used it in that capacity many times, and it sounds fantastic. It sounds great. The VideoMic NTG only sounds bad when you compare it to the NTG5. So you will have excellent sound quality plugged straight into your R5C. It's not going to drain any of the camera's battery because it has its own, and you can adjust on the microphone instead of in camera, so you don't have to dive into any menus to change the volume or to change the gain settings. So for me, it comes down to whether you have that module or not. Because if you have the module, NTG5 is the way to go. If you don't, the VideoMic NTG is a no-brainer. And the final question that we really want to ask for R5C users, is it worth buying the Tascam XLR module just so you can use microphones like the Rode NTG5? And I would say no, because you can plug a high quality shotgun microphone directly into your camera without that module. Yes, you might not be able to get 2 inputs depending on the setup that you use, but if you're not going to be needing 2 inputs, then you don't need the Tascam module. And for anybody using the Canon C70, get the NTG5. This is your microphone. If there's anything that you would like to know that I potentially haven't spoken about in comparing these two microphones, something that I've missed out or didn't go into enough detail on, just put it in the comments and I will respond, hopefully to provide more information and answer to your question, or it'll be something that I can put into a future video to help demonstrate. I'd love to hear what you guys think, so please do put a comment below. I'm going to make another video soon about the Tascam XLR module for the R5C and other Canon cameras, how I use it and the reason why I bought it in the first place, whether you need it or not. If you want to hear more on that, definitely subscribe to the channel and I shall get that video up as soon as I can. I do make these in between my work and in between shoots, and I tend to be quite exhausted when I'm actually getting around to do it. Let me know if there's any way that I can improve these videos and what other kind of things that I can incorporate to make them more useful and more informative, and I'll try and do that in the future. But if you do enjoy content like this, then please do consider subscribing and just put a like and a positive comment, and I really do appreciate that. And hopefully I shall see you in the next video. Take care.